Joining us now, Karate Hoosier. How are you, sir?
Glad to be back. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Absolutely. Pleasure as always. Been a great run for Indiana basketball here of late. The men who had lost 3 straight Big Ten games and looked like they were in a tailspin. And it looked like that thing was just going to crash land. And they've got it pulled up and leveled off and in a trajectory that is rising now. Not only winning 3 straight, winning on the road, winning in dominant fashion in some forms. Trayce Jackson-Davis playing beyond an All-American status right now. As a matter of fact, and I haven't brought this up, and damn it, I meant to with Mike DeCourcy. Trayce Jackson-Davis is playing at a level of player of the year for Big Ten right now. He's outplaying Zach Edey. I ran the numbers, as a matter of fact. In Big Ten play only, he's averaging 21 points a game versus 20 points a game for Edey. Edey gets him on the rebounding by 1 or so. But Trayce Jackson-Davis, this was the race for player of the year in the Big Ten, was sewn up and it was in a box with a West Lafayette address on it from Chicago, I'm certain, until now. And they're probably going to unpack that thing, because if Trayce Jackson-Davis can continue this level of play, there is no question he is the player of the year in the Big Ten.
I'll tell you what, it's certainly going to be a lot more of a contest than I think a lot of the media, a lot of fans anticipated. And partly, ask Antoine Randall what the value of being on a winning team does as far as the individual accolades go, or Anthony Thompson for that.
I was going to say, ask Anthony Thompson. Cost him a Heisman Trophy.
Yes. Zach Edey's clearly the belle of the ball right now with Purdue sitting atop the Big Ten. I believe they're a 19-1 record. He's just, he's a freak of nature. Kid's 7'4", and he's pretty difficult to guard. On the flip side, though, Trayce Jackson-Davis, averaging a 20 and 10 double-double, averaging on the season right now. Just playing out of his, 19.4 and 10, excuse me. But pretty darn close to a 20 and 10 double-double average. Dude's just playing out of his mind right now. And I personally, if somebody knows Tim Weaver's home address, forward it over to me. I would love to send the man a fruit basket, some chocolate, some flour, something. Because
you know what? I'm glad you brought that up too, because you know what I said when that came out, and everyone was giving that guy grief. I'm like, that letter should be taped up and traced out. He should tape that up in his locker. He should have. First of all, he should have never brought that out. That was, I think, that was immature to do that. But regardless of that, he should have taped that in his locker and left it right there. That's what I think he should have done.
I'll tell you what, man, if you're going to go to the link to handwrite a letter, no differently than when you send a tweet or an email or post on the Facebook, whenever you choose to engage someone who is a quote unquote public figure, you are engaging in public discourse at that point. So if they want to put you on blast, you certainly opened your backside up to that. But he certainly has responded. And I don't know, I'm not going to say Tim Weaver's letter is the reason that Trayce is now all of a sudden asserting himself both on the floor as well as a leader in that locker room. We heard, I believe it was prior to the Wisconsin game, sometime after Penn State, players only meeting. Coach Ya was at the radio show in Woody's Place this week and said he wasn't even aware it happened at the time. They got the guys together and talked about what their goals were and where they were trying to go and what they needed to do to get there. And Trayce has done probably the best job of his career as far as leading by example from that point forward. And not that he was really slouching prior to that. I think he
was not playing with the intimidation factor he is right now. He's playing to try to intimidate guys right now, and he has not done that.
No, he's playing like a man on fire. He's playing like a senior who recognizes he's running out of runway in his career here in Indiana, who made the choice to come back to Indiana this year to accomplish more than what they had so far. Having barely squeaked into the tournament last year in the play-in game and gotten deep-pantsed out in Portland, Oregon. Kudos to him for not wanting that to be the lasting memory of his his final week in Bloomington, and he's playing like a guy that's actualized that is fully cognizant of how little time is left and how high the stakes are in each remaining game, and most importantly, he's found a way to get the rest of his teammates to come along with him, and the connectedness that this team is playing with in the last three games compared to the prior three games to start this new year, a night and day difference. They went from scraping the bottom of the Big Ten to now they find themselves in I believe they're in a five-way tie for six, with a great chance to move up against Minnesota here this week. So, as has been the case with Indiana, up until this point in the season, we've seen some really, really good basketball. We've seen some pretty poor basketball. Consistency is going to be key for everything going forward, and you certainly have to like the trend that they're on now, back to back double-digit wins against Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan State, with a road win sandwich in the middle there. Just playing some pretty assertive, pretty convincing basketball for a team that really looked listless following the Xavier Johnson and the Race Thompson injuries. You look like a team that's kind of figured it out, and it's been in no small part to the bench play. No small part to the maturation of Jalen Hood-Schifino. And, I think what's going to continue to be key for them every game is somebody coming out of off the bench or out of that starting rotation that's not one of those top two guys and making some meaningful contributing impacts. You saw it with Trey Galloway. We've seen it with Jordan Geronimo and so on, Tamar Bates for that matter. I think that's going to be absolutely imperative for these guys going forward, to continue to get those contributions from other guys besides Fino and Trace, because when Indiana can play like that, they're just a really, really dynamic team. And I think it also starts, quite honestly, with the defensive intensity. They have gotten a lot better in a short period of time in rotation and just keeping themselves out of rotation to begin with. And we'll see how that plays out for the remainder of the season. But you certainly have to like the response. I don't know that it's going to be permanent, but that's all you can ask for is show me some fight. Show me that you guys are not willing to accept, a 3-game skid. And, lo and behold, now they find themselves, the only team in the Big Ten with a longer conference winning streak right now is Purdue. They're coming off 6 in a row, but otherwise, nobody else in the league has been able to string two together, or is carrying more than a 1-game winning streak up to, at this current moment, other than the Hoosiers sitting on 3 in a row right now, looking to make it 4.
Yeah, and not putting the cart before the horse. This is something that could get stretched out to easily a 5-game winning streak. I don't want to go beyond that but the next game is on the road, which road games are always tough. Don't get me wrong, but Minnesota's only win has come on the road, not at home, as they are 1-7. You can't have a letdown and not play to the competition of your team, of the team you're playing. But then when they come back home that following weekend, they play a struggling or a very inconsistent Ohio State team, although very talented and good and capable of winning. But Indiana should win the next 5 straight. And then you go to Maryland, who has not exactly had a great year, but they are 9-1 at home. But if they could reel off 5 straight Big Ten wins, that would be huge for this team and their confidence.
No, it gets them back in the conversation, at least as far as conference contenders. We're about at the point where Purdue may be losing contact with the rest of the field. But, Indiana still has a chance to play, a very realistic chance to play for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament, for a higher seed line, for the NCAA tournament. There's obviously a lot of basketball left to be played, but this is exactly the stretch where, as we've said before, you got to make some hay while the sun's shining, because once February rolls around, it just gets absolutely brutal for Indiana. Not that the Big Ten's a cakewalk at any stretch of your schedule, but certainly the more winnable games present for Indiana in January as opposed to February. So having dropped those first 3, it just puts an emphasis on capitalizing on those opportunities. And, a road win at the barn is certainly a great way to get yourself ready for a monster home matchup this Saturday against the Buckeyes.
You talk about Purdue getting away from the field, and they are. They've done exactly what they need to do that. Getting those some tight wins that they've gotten, whether it was at Ohio State or beating Michigan State. But the remainder of their schedule, I think they have 11 games left. Only 5 of those on the road. One of those tonight at Michigan at 9:00. They will play at Indiana in February, at Northwestern, at Maryland, and at Wisconsin. So they're those last 3 road games are pretty easy. You got Illinois at home. Indiana at home will be tough. Ohio State has not been showing much. Yeah, Purdue is. It's going to be beyond difficult for people to catch Purdue, which that's not. That horse looks like it's left the stable right now, but the season's not over. A lot of games, but it would take a fall apart by Purdue to lose the conference lead, I think. But there's other things to play for. As high a seeding as possible in the NCAA tournament, as high a seeding as possible in the Big Ten tournament, something Indiana has never won, and they have as good a chance to win this year as any year because other than Purdue seeming to be kind of ahead above the conference, there's no one else that has stood out above. And I'm not sure how far away Purdue is when it comes to conference play. I mean, they're obviously beatable.
No, they certainly are. But let me just add in here: Purdue's greatest foe remains squarely on the schedule. That's March. March is undefeated against the Boilermakers. So,
man, boom, bing. Where's my rim shot? Bam.
No, all jokes aside, they do have a tough stretch here with Michigan State, Penn State, and then a trip to Assembly Hall in their next 4. Even if they take a couple losses, they're still sitting pretty strong in conference right now. But things happen over the course of a basketball season, as we've seen. Teams pick up injuries, chemistry ebbs and flows. Purdue has been really, really consistent in how they play. You talk about Indiana in the tournament. I would say right now, Indiana is probably one of the more dangerous teams, simply because how streaky we've seen them play. When they get hot, they can be really, really, really hot. And as guys are starting to gain more confidence in new roles, we've got Race Thompson coming back now, hopefully, soon to round out to form. You got the sense that was more just kind of an exploratory experiment with him in the last game. Clearly didn't feel great about what he was able to do, so they shut him down pretty early. But with him continuing to get back into shape, with the potential for Xavier Johnson's return, I think this is a team that's going to continue to have to remain in flux a little bit, because the chemistry is going to continue to change.
My question, that was my next question right there, Crawling, not to interrupt you. What about the chemistry, though, if Xavier's able to come back, especially Xavier? I think it's easier to integrate Race Thompson in down low than it is going to be to reintegrate Xavier, because Trey Galloway has done a hell of a job in a very, very different way. And so this team is accustomed to that. And it's a notch lower speed wise than what Xavier goes. So, and people may not understand, but any change is change, and it can upset how things are going. How do you think that they'll be, if Xavier's able to come back, they'll be able to integrate what they're doing with what they have going on right now?
Well, that's the thing, that you're introducing more uncertainty, more unknown quantities into the mix now. I think the one thing to take away, no matter how they reacclimate to his reintroduction, what's happened in the meantime, the additional touches, the additional minutes for Tamar Bates, the additional responsibilities for Trey Galloway, the different role for Jalen Hood-Schifino. I think, despite the struggle of maybe putting another man into the rotation again, and possibly taking away some minutes, some touches from those guys, the confidence in themselves, as well as the confidence that they've been able to gain from their teammates, I think only makes them stronger. I think from a coaching standpoint, it just gives Woody more bullets to try to hit a target when it's going to be ever elusive. So, there's going to be games. We've seen it. Tamar can go out there and go 0 for 4, or he can turn around and absolutely light you up, for 17 points. I think at the end of the day, getting those looks now makes them that much stronger when they have a full availability, perhaps at the end of the season or towards the end of the year. I think what I'm most interested in seeing is how do they sustain the intensity? How do they sustain the edge that they've been playing with? Because it has started on the defensive end, but I think you've seen it carry over the connectedness into the offense, the assertiveness in the offense. And as you mentioned earlier, it very much starts with Trace being able to establish himself on the post. The one thing I would caution is, in the last couple of games, Indiana has not seen a very dominant post opposite Trace. And we've got some pretty quality, some pretty strong bigs ahead on the schedule. They're going to continue to test them, but that's just going to put a greater emphasis on some of those supporting players stepping up. I thought Indiana did a pretty good job in playing out of Michigan State's traps and some of the collapsing they were doing on them. Figuring out where those spots were going to be when the man peels off to double down on Trace. That's generally where you want to get the ball to, is that vacancy that was just created. So Trace has proven to be pretty capable of recognizing that. It's a matter of getting the other guys in position, getting the other guys in motion. Indiana, you get the sense, kind of like you did, mid-February last year, where things are starting to click for the Hoosiers. And you see it translate on both ends of the floor right now. Can they sustain it? It's the $1 million question.